Okay. Recording is live. Share. Okay, great. Can everybody see slides okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Awesome. Morning, everybody. Welcome to the fourth quarter. I can't believe I'm saying that. Broadband Advisory Council meeting for 2023. I actually, by accident, we actually had a meeting on this exact same day a year ago, and I was like, wow. So it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. I hope everybody's having a good start to your fourth quarter. I know there's a lot going on in conferences and things like that, but we're grateful for joining us today. There's a lot going on in broadband world. We're going to walk through a lot of topics and get everybody up to speed, but many thanks, Madam Co-Chair. It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
So we'll go through, and I think I just wanted to start, pop up the agenda for everybody, just so we can reflect on what we're going to try to cover in our 90 minutes together. But we're just going to do some welcomes generally. We want to review and approve our minutes really quickly. I hope everybody got those and thought that they were adequate, and do some introductions. Step through, we're going to do a broadband office update. We're going to do a deeper dive into what's called the BEAD program and the digital equity program from NTIA. And we've got that. We'll take on any other business as we have time and just pointing out our next meeting. But diving right in, again, welcome. Madam Co-Chair, it is great to have you as always. And especially the Association of Counties, and we are glad to have your partnership along for the ride. Let's flip the script a little bit and do some introductions so everybody knows who's here. Anna, I'll start with you and we'll just kind of go around.
Of course. Good morning. I'm Anna Berger with the South Carolina Association of Counties, and pleased to be here and honored to co-chair. This crowd does an amazing job, and so I just stay the heck out of the way. But they're super busy, and I'm excited about how far we've come and where we're headed. So thank you.
Cedric Kidd, Officer of Regulatory Staff, Broadband Office.
Yeah, no, you go ahead, please.
Hey, morning, folks. Andrew Bateman, I'm the ORS Deputy Executive Director. I know that y'all are probably aware that Nanette, much to our chagrin, is going to be leaving at the beginning of November. So when Nanette leaves, I'm hoping to sort of take over as the interim executive director. We'll see after that what Perk and the governor end up deciding. But I want to extend my thanks to y'all for being here. Thanks to Cedric, Jim, Mike, James, and the broadband team. They're doing a fantastic job getting things moving. And to the extent y'all have any questions of me, please don't hesitate to reach out. I hope to have the same open lines of communication that Annette has with y'all. I hope to have that as well. So any issues that pop up, don't hesitate to reach out. I know Cedric, Jim, their doors are open, their phones are open, and same with me. So please reach out to the extent I can help.
And I will say, Andrew has been deeply involved in everything we're doing, and he's going to be he'll slide right in as if nothing happened. So we're very grateful, and we feel like we got great leadership here at ORS. So
Nanette pretended not to get mad when we called her on Fridays at like 6
I'll do the same.
The key word is. Thanks, Andrew, for that. It's excited about your leadership. Brad Wright, I'm here on behalf of the South Carolina Rural Telephone Companies.
Chad Chadwick, I'm the Federal Program Officer for NTIA here in South Carolina, in charge of BEAD and digital equity. So I spent a lot of time here.
he's an adopted family member. We treat him just like everybody else on the team, and he knows it. But I just want to say we're very grateful to have Chad. He has been mission critical, especially as we lean in on BEAD, and having somebody local to take all of our issues and concerns up to the top brass has been really, really helpful. So thanks for coming and being here in person today. So
I'm Peggy McLean, and I'm with the South Carolina Department of Commerce.
I'm Ben Brazillo with the South Carolina Cable and Broadband Association. We just filed the paperwork, so we just changed our name. Television Association, with Cable and Broadband Association.
very good. Well, it fits you well. And then looking out to our online guests, Tom, I see you. I can see your face, so why don't you start us off? Whoops, Tom, you might be muted. Still not hearing you. Tom, we'll come back around, see if we figure. Mike Hertzberger?
Yeah, hi, good morning, everybody. Mike Hersberger here, Deputy Director for the South Carolina Broadband Office, and I have with me my colleague, our Senior Data Scientist, Mr. James Tanis.
Good afternoon, or good morning, actually. James Tanis, Broadband Office and Senior Data
Call back
Scientist.
to me.
Oh, hey, Tom. Can hear you now, I think. Tom?
Sound check here, Jim. You got me?
Got you now. Yes, sir.
Very good. I'm sorry. I'm embarrassed to say that I'm the Chief Technology Officer here at the Office of Regulatory Staff, and I can't operate my computer apparently. Apologies for that. Tom Allen, again, the Chief Technology Officer. I've got, amongst other things, I've got the Broadband Office as well as digital equity. I'll be giving a small little update on digital equity in a few minutes, but welcome everyone, and obviously let us know if we can do anything for you.
Thanks, Tom. Let's see, Eric Buds.
Deputy Executive Director, Municipal Association. I appreciate the opportunity to be part of the committee.
Great. And let's see who else. Okay, we've got Mike Coker. You want to say hi?
Good morning, everyone. Mike Coker with Santee Cooper Telecom and Broadband.
Hi, Mike, and thanks. Good to see you yesterday. Dr. Nelson.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Gwyneth Nelson. I'm the Executive Director of the Institutes of Innovation and Information. Thank you so much for allowing me to join this morning.
Fantastic. Great to see you. Did I miss anybody? I don't think so. Got everybody. Well, great. Again, Emerald, I see you, but I don't think we've got your microphone turned on. So welcome to Congressman Clyburn's office. Thanks for joining us today. Very good. Okay, so we're going to dive in and cover some topics. I wanted to start with just a real simple thing for the BBAC members. Did you get a chance to look at the minutes? Could I have a motion to approve the minutes? Could I have a second on that? Second, thank you. Any amendments necessary at all? Okay, we'll consider the minutes are approved and we'll get those posted online for everybody. And I think everybody knows the full recording of these meetings is also out there, so we can review this content at any time. We went through introductions. You all met Andrew. We are sad for Nanette's departure, of course, but you know she's moving on to some cool stuff. She'll have, but we're really, really grateful to have Andrew being part of this. And that's it. So let me give you an update on the broadband stuff. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but we have, the way I like to say it is we have two trains on the tracks at the same time that we're trying to manage. So we, the General Assembly allocated $400 million of American Rescue Plan money to the Broadband Office back in May of 22. That's train number one, and it's been moving and has been moving a lot. We have two grant programs that we stood up in calendar year 2023. We did what we called the Accelerated Deployment Grant Program, and the essence of that was to take a look backwards in time and recognize the folks that built a lot of stuff from March 15th, 2021, when ARPA law went into place, but all that work had to be done on June 30, 2022. So it's backwards in time, and we're trying to fund some of those projects. Now, we have signed grant applications in place for all of those, and we're going basically through the audit steps. So we're making sure that all of the construction happened. We're doing things like checking billing statements to make sure that the networks truly were live, that customers were in place. So really the workload for accelerated deployment has shifted to our finance and audit team. And the broadband office work was to count homes and count locations and come up with the dollar amounts and do all that stuff. But we're still working together, but bless Amy, because it's really largely a financial exercise at this point in time. But it's great news and incredible amount of work, and we'll be able to report out the total number of homes that were constructed and paid for with ARPA money in that time. This does set up an interesting thing that everybody needs to be aware of. The FCC's mapping is now done at the location level. And when we attach American Rescue Plan dollars to fund a street address, you can't have two sources of American Rescue Plan money landing on the same location. So this is where we've been working very closely with both Mr. Buds and with Anna and the counties is, the counties have American Rescue Plan money and they can do a lot of things with that. But there is a danger that the county would attach $1 to a house and we attach $1 to a house, and one or the other is going to lose, probably in the form of a clawback. And that's something we don't want anybody to have happen, because where's the money going to come from? So we are doing everything possible to coordinate with the counties to the extent that they will communicate with us. And that has candidly been difficult to get clear mapping level detail on that. But I want to make sure everybody here understands, this is serious business now. When you're attaching federal dollars, this is not state dollars where you can figure it out a different way. The federal clawback is significant. And as we get into yes, ma'am.
How many counties used ARPA funds for broadband?
Pretty much, it's not done yet. We still have 2 more grant rounds to award, but I think just about every county, with a couple of exceptions.
How many is the?
County ARPA.
Yeah.
I think there are about 6 counties that have ARPA related
So
projects.
it's not that many, but it is
It is
very
significant
important.
potential.
Okay.
And there's close coordination. In fact, I know for sure that Charter is one example where they have RDOF money in a lot of counties, and they are closely interspersing county investments. It's very tricky. And now that we're at the location level, we have to be very precise.
And I relay that to them, and I know you've been talking.
Yeah, and the accountability from the broadband office is heavy right now. We have to report to the federal government every single street address that gets funding. And in addition to a speed test has to be attached to it. And it's a lot of work. We're not asking for it to be painful, but I know that the ISPs are getting a heavy level of scrutiny now that they've never had before. So anyway, enough on that. Capital Projects Fund grant applications. This is a place where candidly the workload is so crazy on us right now between the BEAD deadlines and also the capital projects funds that we had to make a choice to delay our capital projects fund awards to mid-December. We've done a lot of the internal scoring. We kind of know how things are going to play out, but we also had to struggle with some data collection issues and some mapping things coming in from the ISPs. It's just a lot right now. So buying ourselves an extra 30 days allowed us to articulate things a little bit better. We're in good shape on both of those, feel good about it. And we're going to award a portion of the CPF probably in the middle of December. We'll announce it in mid-December. Some of the awards will happen in between now and then. But we'll embargo everything and announce it in one press release at the end, like we've done before. So, any questions on that?
Just clarity, Jim, and I know it's a fluid situation, but you said there may be some awards given prior to December 15th or whatever, mid-December, but the big announcement, it'll kind of be funneling out through November?
Yeah, and the size of the project, some of them are easy to say yes to and we can move them along. We won't. The document we call a notice to proceed does not happen until all of the signed paperwork is in place. But just so everybody knows, our typical protocol is Cedric and I will jump on a phone and we'll notify what we call finalists. And that's really the beginning of the curing process, where we get all the documents and the mapping buttoned up and perfect. In some cases, there will be some map negotiations. Some locations will change from the original application, and getting that all dovetailed together so that it comes in a nice package and can be delivered for e-signature.
Okay.
But yeah, but we're not going to be the holdup there. We'll push documents out. Everybody needs time for legal review and stuff. There's a lot on the line now.
Okay.
So, but that's where those are at. Okay, here's kind of, you can see the timeline overlaps. I'm gonna slide, we got a little window here. This is the timeline of the craziness in 2025. You can see these big freight trains kind of landing on our office. And what you don't see here is data collection that's happening from the ISPs. We put out a data request to get the June 30 data, went out in July, and we were supposed to get that the early part of September. The FCC shifted the date out a little bit, and just we are carefully auditing all of that data from June 30. It's a big part of our work is getting that right, but you can see how much is going on just with the overload of the timelines. We shared this slide last time around. It's kind of crazy to think about the Broadband Office was just created in July of 2021, and I inherited a small investment round, what seems small now, of $30 million.
So big.
The Rural Broadband Grant, and now the amount of dollars that this team is responsible for has exceeded $1 billion in total. And to be a startup, one-man band, and then to grow the incredible team that we have now, just gives you some, it's been hell on wheels. So that's good. All right, let's dig into some things. And Tom, I'm going to ask you to comment in a second. First of all, since our last meeting, we did get and submitted our 5-year broadband. When we last met, we were really close to getting that done. We actually got it put in 3 days early.
Yeah.
We had 270 days, and we got it in 3 days early, so that was great. It was a 400+ page document. It is out there. We'd actually love for you guys to take a peek. A lot of the volume of that is some really wonderful. We had over 13,000 surveys collected from the community. USC, you remember from our last meeting, they came in and did a wonderful presentation. There's a whole set of slides on that work. Clemson did some really nice stuff analyzing community anchor institutions. So a lot of stuff. Hopefully you'll get some good meat out of that. So that's done. You can kind of put the checkbox on the 5-year action plan. The unfortunate thing is we really couldn't take a breath because right when that was done, the immediate need to work on this thing called the initial proposal just landed on our heads. And that is the far right-hand column. And it's due, you could tell they gave us that was really gracious of you, Chad. Thanks for 180 days. So the initial proposal is kind of how these fit together. The 5-year action plan was intended to be an assessment of what the state has, kind of all of the different things that we have. The initial proposal is intended to be the blueprint for exactly how the state will solve our unserved and underserved residential locations in the state. That is job number one, is getting that done. So the initial proposal is a lot of meat on the bone, very, very prescriptive in terms of how we're going to get from whatever remaining homes we've got to the finish line. And we have to predict what, if any, money will remain and be available for what are called non-deployment uses. And there's some cool stuff we can do. But that's a heavy lift document, and it is all consuming. You'll learn about that a little more in a couple minutes. And Tom, could you kind of catch everybody up on digital opportunity?
Sure. Thank you, Jim. Again, appreciate everyone being with us today. just a couple of updates to provide for you. If you're not aware, on October 1st, the Digital Opportunity Office transferred from the Department of Administration to ORS, and it reports under my group. We've currently got 2 employees, which include myself and Shari Atkins, who is on the phone as well. So going forward, if you see either one of our names, you know that means digital equity. And really right now we've got 2 priorities. Number one is actually officially transferring the office, doing some bureaucratic performances here with, through the feds, but also with the state, completing paperwork, etc. But the most important part, of course, is completing the digital equity plan. And right now, we received the digital equity plan and its draft from administration and Ernst & Young on about September 30th. We're currently going through our departmental review between Shari and myself. And we plan to have that completed by October 25th. At that time, it'll go through an agency review with our executive leadership. And our plan is to have the digital equity plan posted by November 22nd, open for its public comment for the next month. We'll use the month of January to fold in some of those comments where appropriate. And then the finalized plan is due in mid-February. So that's our plan right now for the progress of the plan and completing the plan. We're excited about it. We're trying to make it South Carolina's own right now with some help of Chad, and we appreciate his help as always. But from an office perspective, really our next steps, we've got to hire some additional staff. And that hopefully that'll occur here over in the next month or so. And we've also got to restart engagement with our stakeholders once our internal draft is completed. So we're looking forward to everyone on this call being a part of that stakeholder process. And in the meantime, let us know if we can do anything else. Jim, can I take just a quick minute to talk about ACP right now? Or
of course, yes, please.
Also, for those of you not aware, South Carolina has been awarded $400,000 to raise awareness and outreach for ACP. We have not yet accepted the grant. We've been working through some issues with the FCC in making sure that we can be compliant with the grant, and we're in a really good space from that perspective right now. So we fully intend to accept the grant either today or tomorrow as soon as we get a chance. And we've been greasing the skids with some other stakeholders to prepare for this outreach that we'll be doing in the upcoming months. So we can expect those to take place here, from November on through early January. So with that in mind, I'll pause there for any questions. And if there aren't any, I'll turn it back over to Jim.
Any questions on the digital opportunity stuff? It's kind of neat, and I hope everybody can feel like it's a 1-2 punch, right? My team's got the infrastructure side, and then everything else is Tom. But it's very powerful for the state, and provides a lot of opportunity to do some neat things.
What does ACP stand for?
Affordable Connectivity Program,
Thank you.
and that's the FCC's $30 a month subsidy, household subsidy. So yeah. So the purpose of the grant, as Tom shared, was to make the residents of South Carolina aware of the availability, but also to directly sign people up. So that's be it.
Jim, I think that was Peggy. Peggy, I apologize for not spelling out that acronym earlier.
Jim, does DOA have any role left now with everything's come? That's good.
Other than the fact that the executive budget office still is there.
Right. Not that
But yeah.
DOA was doing a bad job, but it just
Right.
A lot of that makes sense. I think.
And I'll share with you, they're really somewhat involved right now, and it's because of reporting that has to go on. But by October 31st, they will no longer be involved at all.
Thank you, Tom.
Any other questions? Hank, if there's anything that gets typed into the message box, we can try to respond to that too. If anybody has stuff. Whoops. So here's kind of the timeline of how how things look for both the digital equity plan. You can see, we actually did get our 5-year broadband plan was submitted August 25th. That's done. So we've passed that. We are working hard to get the initial proposal. December 27th is our hard stop. But Mike and James are going to talk more about this. We're required to have 30 days of public comment, and that'll be broadly the month of November. Mike will provide more detail in a second. Initial proposal has to be submitted by December 27th. So nobody wants to work on Christmas, so we're going to try to get it in a little bit ahead of that, but that's the hard stop. And then the digital equity plan, it's got some moving pieces as Tom showed as well. And then it goes. But the key beyond that, and this is kind of a good segue for Mike and James to kick in, but as you kind of look at the timeline, as soon as our initial proposal is approved, that gives us permission to utilize up to 20% of our BEAD money, of our $551 million. I will say that it's not really usable for anything infrastructure related. There are programmatic things that we can do with it, but that's something not a lot of people understand, is that the initial 20% is heavily focused on really workforce development pieces and things like that, but directly programmatic things. And then we get into the challenge process, and then this thing that's called the final proposal is, Chad is just really tough. The initial proposal, as soon as it's approved, that starts a 365-day shot clock with which we have to turn this thing called the final proposal in. And that's where we have to provide a complete list of all of the subrecipients that will be getting the $551 million. So said differently, in 12 months, we will be committing $551 million to a range of things. And then that gets approved, then we do notices to proceed, blah, 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 blah. But that's the broad thing.
Jim, I have a question. Do you have any idea what the delta will be between, maybe Chad, when the initial proposal and the acceptance? Because you get the 365 from when it's accepted, right?
We've been told, and he's sweating a little bit, I can tell. But we have been told, and at least our working assumption is it will take 90 days to get the initial proposal approved.
Okay.
So we're thinking on or about March 31, 2024.
That's when your 365-day clock starts.
That's our best guess from everything we know right now. You notice I did not put that in writing.
Yeah, and
That's our working
that's
assumption.
the assumption. And there are a couple of moving parts here, right? Like South Carolina wants volume 2 to be at the end of the queue, but volume 1 as soon as possible. So we've got to balance that.
Yeah.
Other states don't have ARPA money. They don't have any other money, so they can't wait to get BEAD money. So they're really at the head of the line. Jim's like, we've got a lot of money, so let's kind of put our application at the bottom of the pile. So
Intentionally.
to be
To sequence in, the perfect scenario is BEAD sequences in perfectly right as we are winding down with ARPA, right? That's how we're trying to play it. But there's a lot of moving parts, and James and Mike are going to walk you through this, but our opening salvo for BEAD is our ending maps of ARPA, right? So whatever's left at the end of ARPA becomes our starting point for BEAD. So the maps are mission critical to get those right, and that's why we are auditing everybody. We are very, very precise. Any projects that we've funded, we are auditing all of those to make sure that all of those locations are showing up in the federal data. And we've had a lot of, really clarifying phone calls on that stuff, a lot of detailed look, but yeah, there's no rest for the weary anytime soon. It's a heavy load. So, all right, Mike and James, the floor is yours.
Excellent. All right. Appreciate that, Jim. So we thought it might be useful to the team to just take a little bit of a deeper dive here in terms of BEAD, what we've got going on, some descriptors about the program, and then really, a call to action here from the folks on the call to get us in a good place. So at a high level, we're looking at $551 million for broadband deployment and non-deployment activities. This is a 75-25% non-federal match. The only exclusion there would be specific to administrative funds, which I believe is 2% of the total 551 million could be eligible for administrative support. The key here, and this order does matter to NTIA, is our priority to fund unserved, underserved, CAIs, and then non-deployment activities. And that's pretty much the kitchen sink. And in order for this to all work out for South Carolina, we have to get that initial proposal approved by NTIA, and everything is pending on that process. And again, to reiterate, we're thinking sometime March, April timeframe that should hopefully come to us next year. So Jim, next slide.
Yep.
So we wanted to distill this down to the three most important things for the Broadband Advisory Council to begin to consider right now. Right, these are the top three things we really need you guys to have some visibility on. And we're going to go into a little bit more detail, especially in the top two. Right, number one are these community anchor institutions. So as part of the Notice of Funding Opportunity and the guidelines that NTIA has published, we have gone through an extensive effort to try to get together all of the community anchor institutions. And we, in fact, had to define that for South Carolina. And we're going to share that with you in a subsequent slide here. Key for us is to make sure, sorry, Jim, can you go back?
Oh, I didn't move it. Yeah, I don't know how. Ghost. Yep.
There you
All right.
go. All right. Key for us is to have a complete representation of all of the community anchor institutions as it's defined in our initial proposal. We really need this as soon as possible, right? So many of you have already helped. Big shout out to Anna and her support for trying to reach out to our county partners. And Eric, I believe we've also tried to connect with you. This is really, all hands on deck. Let's make absolute certain we at least have a representation of all those CAIs, right? If it is not included in the data that we provide to NTIA, it may not be eligible for BEAD funding. If we miss it, it may have to come through the BEAD challenge process. And that's item 3 there that you see here on this slide. So this is a big priority for us. We want to make sure it gets done, and it gets done as accurately and correctly and completely as we possibly can. The big hook here is anything that lacks 1 gigabit per second up and down symmetric service is essentially eligible as a CAI for BEAD funding, right? So it's important that we get this right, and we really need the team's help to actually pull this off. So item 2 is the second one that really is going to require some support from this broader team, right? So we have a comment period that we're going to start the day before Halloween, October 30th, right? So we've got circa 19 days, right, to finalize whatever this initial proposal, volume 1 and 2, is going to represent for the state. And it's a 30-day comment period. What we're hoping the team can do here is message out through your social media networks, your channels, through those that are part of your organization, to get some interest around what it is that we're doing with this initial proposal, get eyes on it, make sure that if there are comments that they come back through, and we have a comment form that we can obviously share with you in terms of a landing page for everything BEAD related, similar to what we've done in previous grant rounds. There's one particular page on the ORS website, one can go and just one-stop shop. Everything you need is right there. Item 3 here is participating in messaging around the actual BEAD challenge process. So let's fast forward here. NTIA accepts our initial proposal. What that will trigger for us here in the Broadband Office is the start of our BEAD challenge process. And what that is we need to be able to give everyone, ISPs, folks like the BBAC, consumers can report that up through county government, through nonprofits and other organizations, and you can challenge these broadband serviceable locations. And so that process has all been articulated as part of volume 1 of our initial proposal. And that will be step 1 when NTIA actually approves our initial proposal. And so there's a space there for BBAC, for municipal government, for county government to be part of that challenge process. And we certainly want to encourage that. Just like item number 2 here, encouraging feedback on this plan. The initial proposal is really critical. We want to get it right. And the more eyes that look at it and the more feedback we get, the greater likelihood we can accomplish that task. So Jim, when you can, next slide, please.
Yeah, and Mike, I just want to just kind of a little further clarification on number 1. Community anchor institutions, just to give some specific examples. Each physical building at a county, each separate physical location is a CAI, right? So documenting connectivity, and we've tried to work with everybody to do that, but each physical building on an HBCU campus is a CAI. So thinking about it like that. And if the so what here, and Mike already said it, I'm just reiterating, but the so what is if the dot doesn't show up on the map, we can't fund it. It has to be in the collection of data or it's not going to be eligible for investment. So that's why.
Do you mean like on a college campus, Jim, every building, every history hall, lecture hall?
Yes.
Every separate address?
Every separate address. Potentially. That's why it's such a big lift. But you extend your thoughts of county government, right? Judicial facilities, prison buildings. I mean, all of the different things that make up and constitute a county government or municipal government. Eric, we've been working with your team as well, but I just wanted to talk that out a little bit so you all kind of know what we're looking at. Now, the key word is access, not necessarily, availability. So if there is access to 1 gig service, but they're not paying for it, that's a different situation. So if that geography has access to 1 gigabit symmetric, it will not be eligible for investment. Does that make sense?
And usually that's an Ethernet on a college campus that has a giant pipe coming into that college campus.
Yeah, there's a lot in it, and the internet connectivity doesn't necessarily travel to every building directly, right?
Yeah.
So, but that's where the engineers need to get involved and see where we're at.
May I interject
Yeah.
on number 3, the challenge process? This is where the advisory committee is going to be very important because Joe Blogs, the regular consumer, can't directly challenge location. It's got to come through an ISP, a municipality, or a nonprofit.
Yep.
So we're going to really have to get our networks engaged when that challenge process opens to have them look at their counties, have them look at their service areas or their particular service area and say, okay, you don't have this covered because short of that, this isn't.
So that challenge period will be open to, say, Aiken County that did not respond by the end of October. Are they going to be part of that? Could they be part of that challenge?
Yes,
process?
they could say you missed one, but it's really hard. I mean,
Sure.
in the challenge window to get things done is really hard.
Sure.
But I tell you what, let's go through all of this and then we'll circle back and then we'll have some thoughts on next steps.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Jim. I there was great conversation there, but yeah, we've got slides that are gonna double down on all of these things. Great conversation, and like I said, we're gonna bring it home right here for you guys. So what you're looking at here is at a high level, the milestones that we see up and coming for BEAD. This is from where we are today to the point where we actually go and issue an award to a particular prospective sub-grantee. And everything in red is really where we're hoping the BBAC can really plug in and engage to all of the comments that have already been made here today. And I don't know if you want to pick this back up from here, James.
Okay, yeah, so like what Mike said, everything highlighted in red right here is anything we will need input from the BBAC on. We're gonna go a little bit further into this. Jim, if you could go to the next slide.
Yep.
Okay, so what Jim had mentioned and what everybody was discussing. So here is what we have defined in our initial proposal, volume 1, as a community anchor institution. One of the big key takeaways from this right here is what we have underlined. So the building has to facilitate the greater use of broadband service by vulnerable populations. So that is the big key takeaway from our CAI definition. So you can see the list underneath this. So the schools, the libraries, local, state, government buildings, and so forth, they fall into this definition as long as they facilitate the greater use of broadband service by vulnerable populations. So anything listed in there, or if you have a building or community anchor institution, I should say, that does not fall into that list, but it facilitates the greater use of broadband service by vulnerable populations, we can consider it to be added to the CAI list. So over in the bottom corner, we do have the QR code. This is something we want everybody to use, and this is how to get your building added to the CAI list. It not guaranteed it's going to make it to the final list, but this is giving the broadband office awareness on the building, and we will make the final determination if it meets the definition and can be considered a CAI. This is an ongoing data collection process. No due date on it, but the sooner the better. We're going to be collecting CAIs up until the very end. You get it to us sooner, better chance it will get added. I mean, don't want a bunch of late responses right towards the end, right before we launch our challenge process. But I'll let everybody look at this real quick. These slides will be published, but anything could be added as long as it meets this definition.
I guess just to build on what James is sharing with the team here right now, some of these data sets we already have now, right? Just through the course of due diligence and working with the folks that are obviously on the team. Schools, libraries, we're feeling pretty good about. There's some here though we are a little light on, and that's where, again, some due diligence here from the team to make sure that we've turned over all the rocks would be just awesome, right?
Yes, yes. We, just to give a little more clarification, we are lacking on the nonprofits right now. That is something we're very light on. We don't have many nonprofit CAIs. I mean, that is kind of what we created this survey for, to get information from them. I think we really only have 10 or 11 who have responded to this. We would like to get more of the government buildings throughout the counties, if possible. Public safety, I feel we're kind of good on that one. But, maybe I'm missing some, and the local governments would probably be a better place to get that information from. The higher ed, like Mike said, schools, libraries, I'm comfortable with those, but nonprofits, the community support centers, any of that, we would definitely appreciate some help on those.
James, why don't you comment briefly on houses of worship?
Okay, so that was an exclusion out of our CAI definition. So we did take the path of excluding churches from this, but they have the option of falling back into this definition if they facilitate the greater use of broadband service by vulnerable populations. So you'll see it in the initial proposal when it gets published out there. A couple examples would be if they offer an after-school program for kids.
That's the key.
Yeah, I mean, or if like some of the ones that offer the Meals on Wheels. So as long as they help vulnerable populations, they can be put back in. But we did just exclude putting all churches into the CAI list. That was the approach South Carolina took on this one.
I just wanted to talk that out and make sure everybody knows why. We love houses of worship, but per this definition, we want to make sure that they're doing something to foster the greater use of broadband service, right? So another way to do it is to create a new program that they haven't offered before. And a lot of churches couldn't do after-school daycare because they couldn't get internet. So this is a chance to rally your teams, come up with a plan, and tell us, why you're going to do it. So you can rally your troops. So,
yeah, we would love to see this survey blow up and see a ton of responses on it. It's not the end all if you don't make it right here at the beginning. I'll get into it in a slide or two later. There is a challenge process to get added to this list, but this is the best time to do it before the challenge process opens.
So
I think one other thing to just mention here is the definition that you see is really the NTIA definition, right? Like this is really what the statute says. I don't know that we deviated from it. We did not. What we really did was just clarify or strengthen the instances or the categories that you see there. And what would be permissible, what would not be permissible, even to the language that facilitates greater use of broadband service by vulnerable populations. I can't see Chad in the web call there, but I'm guessing he's nodding his head yes.
Right. And I know we had some people ask us questions on this. I mean, just to clarify, so if it makes it to the list, the only funding tied to this portion would be if they lack the 1 gigabit service where they can't get it, they choose not to subscribe to it. They don't have access to it. And it would be for deployment to get them access to 1 gigabit service. It's the only type of use this funding could be used for. It can't be used for building your program there. This is for deployment to get the infrastructure there.
And it does not cover the monthly cost of paying for it. It just covers the one-time construction cost.
Correct. Good point.
So
Does that QR, James, does that QR code take the person to the two spreadsheets that we've been sharing with our counties?
It does not, but we have kind of baked the spreadsheets into the questions into that survey.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
we just basically just took the spreadsheet and turned it on its side. So, it's one submission per CAI.
Sure. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Jim, can you go to the next slide?
yeah, I'm just saying to Anna, she can kind of see the so what of this. This
Yeah.
is a big deal and it's an opportunity for counties and Eric, municipalities to take care of individual buildings that are really struggling within your footprints. So
I mean, this is the big ones because I have noticed it's the rural areas, the rural fire departments, the rural fire stations, stuff like that lacks the 1 gigabit service. So if we could get all of this documented, best chance of it getting in there.
Another key differentiator here is it's the access, right, to that gig service. Their plan could be not so stellar, right? We're really not interested in the plan that they're subscribed to. We're really interested in the technology and the access to, right? So if they had the money, could they get gig service? Yes or no? That's really the question we need to get answered.
okay.
So here, again, this is call to action, team. You see the red text there, public comment period on the initial proposal begins day before Halloween, October 30th. We're like 19 days and counting. So when and leading up to this, we're truly hopeful that everyone can message out through their social media outlets, word of mouth, get the word out that this initial proposal is available for public comment. Everything that we do related to beads, specifically that will be in the public domain, will be available and accessible through that link that you see right here on that slide. And Jim, I don't know if you have a moment or a mouse, or if you can click on that link. I thought it might be useful to show them where they can download a copy of our 5-year action plan.
There we go. So you go down to bead and you see these accordions. First thing I'll show you is here's the 5-year action plan that's done and was submitted. So this is how you find that. And then
Jim, I'm sorry to interrupt. We still see the slide deck. Not sure.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
it took me, it's not sharing that screen.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I apologize, Mike. It's, I've got to stop sharing and share a different window. So I'm going to skip that.
Not a problem. Key here again is that URL. That will be the landing page for everything related to this grant program. It's very consistent for our ISPs in terms of how we've administered and disseminated information about previous grant programs. So we thought that muscle memory, keeping that consistent, would be quite useful. Let's see. Next slide, Jim.
Yep.
Okay, so this is covering just a high overview of the challenge process. It's a lot to throw at you all right now. So the challenge process is to challenge eligibility for BEAD. So we can challenge a location is served already. So if we have it as unserved, it could be challenged as served, or if it's served, it could be challenged as unserved, or we can challenge, hey, a CAI is missing and the service level at the CAI. So first piece, who can do the challenge? So this is not just open to anybody. So you have the nonprofit organizations, units of local and tribal governments, and internet service providers. So there's a little piece to this. So the units of local government, Anna, this is going to be a big one for you. Residents can do a challenge, but they need to submit it to the unit of local government, and the unit of local government needs to submit the challenge on behalf of the residents. So these are the 3 different organizations that or entities that can challenge. So here's the piece. Again, what can be challenged? This is the last time you could get your CAI added to the list. You could say, hey, I have a CAI that meets the definition. I don't see it on the list. I'd like to challenge it and see if the Broadband Office accepts it. You can challenge the eligibility of the CAI. Does it have gigabit service or not? So this would be more of like an ISP challenging that, or, you know, the CAI, if we mark it as served already, no, actually we don't have access to gigabit service. So then we have the residential challenge. So those below it, the availability, speed, latency, data cap, technology, business service only, enforceable commitments, and plan service, that are the different categories that can only be challenged at a residential location. So this is the only type of challenges that are accepted in this B challenge process. So then the challenge timeline. So we are hoping to open up sometime in Q2 of next year. It's going to be 90 days. And the way it goes is an eligible entity, so either the nonprofit, unit of local government, or an ISP submits a challenge. Then once that challenge is submitted, the Broadband Office either accepts the challenge because all the backup information is there, or denies the challenge. If the challenge is accepted, an ISP can rebuttal the challenge. The only people that can do a rebuttal on a challenge. So they can provide backup information, say, no, I actually do serve that location, or actually that location is not served by us. So once that is done, then ORS has a final determination phase. So we go into it and we look, hey, is the rebuttal correct? Did they provide all the backup information for the rebuttal to be accepted? Or no, I'm sorry, the backup information isn't there. The original challenge sticks. So there's three pieces. It's the challenge comes in, we accept it or we deny it. The ISP does a rebuttal on it, and then we make a final determination. So we do have a big piece right here in red that we need help from the BBAC. It is all units of local government have to be informed about this. I mean, that is what I mentioned earlier. Residents can't do a challenge, but they can submit a challenge to their local government, and the local government can submit it on their behalf. So this is going to be something big. We're going to have more information coming up on this. We'll have a page set up. We'll have a whole timeline on the challenge process. We'll have a write-up, and hopefully we'll have a video too showing how to submit a challenge. But more of this will be to come, since we're going to be launching this hopefully sometime in Q2 of next year. But this is definitely something we need help from the BBAC on.
And James, one thing I want to just clarify is the 1 gigabit per second is symmetric. It's download and upload. So if you got 1 gig down, but you only got 20 gig or 20 meg up, that site will be eligible. Cool. Any further questions on this slide? Anybody?
1 gig symmetrical for residential BSL as well, Jim, or just CAI?
Just CAI. Yep. All right, that's the end of the slides. Mike, did you want to go back to any particular slide?
You know, actually, no, I think we've unfortunately waterboarded these fine folks with all of these wonderful factoids, right? One thing I do want to mention, because again, we are super busy. I noticed in the agenda and none of our slides really referenced SLFRF, and just do want to give a nod out to our existing ISPs that are under contract working. We've got 61 projects in play right now with 15 different ISPs across 34 counties to the tune of $154 million in play right now. And that work all has to be done by no later than December 2024, if I'm not mistaken, if not sooner. And just a big shout out to our ISPs who are just out there crushing it, doing great work, and none of this happens without them. So again, just wanted to put that out there.
Yep, and Mike, can you see the ORS website now?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, good. So I got that right. So let me just spend a second making sure everybody online can see this. So this is the ORS, the linkage to the BEAD page, and then you navigate down. You can see the BEAD planning documents. See how these accordions open up? This is how you find the BEAD 5-year action plan, and you can download that. And 400 plus pages of glory there. And then the initial proposal, everything, see, it's got coming soon in here. So as soon as we go out for public comment, this is where you will find it. It's right in this section. And then we're putting community, information out here, community anchor institutions, anything that we can think of to message out. But I think, let me stop sharing and, unless you guys want me to go somewhere else, but I just,
Yeah, actually, Jim, real quick, if you can, we should certainly mention that CPF timeline has changed. So
yes.
if you can maybe pull that up and just show folks where they can go and see that we've extended by a month where we are today, all the way out to when we were going to issue a notice to proceed.
Good call. Gosh, got too many overlapping windows here. So yeah, this is something for broad general. If you want to be on the mailing list to get notified whenever things are happening, if you touch on this broadband grant notifications, you put your email in there and that will give us permission to spam you. But as things are changing, that's very helpful. Down in state investment programs, you go down to Capital Projects Fund, you can say learn more. And here is the revised dates that we're talking about. So we did change it, and we messaged it out to all the ISPs, but we are tracking against these. So we did hit our internal goal of August 31st, and then we've just had to delay some things. But funding agreements, Cedric and I will begin notifying finalists. As soon as we get the data clean, we'll begin that. Funding agreements will go out shortly thereafter to begin legal review and things like that. So there's going to be a lot of activity around CPF behind the scenes. And then we will look at that 12/18 date. We'll have all the notices to proceed. And as soon as we have signatures back from everybody, we'll send out the press release and, get that out for everybody's understanding. Any further you wanted to add on this? Oh, and then the changes, we did shift out the project completion. Gave everybody an extra month on the construction, and also the final reporting date shifted out a little bit too. So, Mike, anything else you want to add?
No, not right now, Jim. Thank you.
Okay, so let's stop sharing for a second. And just kind of have a little bit of discussion. And I did see we've got some others that joined. Thank you all for jumping in. Bernie, Lisa, seeing some folks, thank you all for joining. And I just wanted to have a little bit of a conversation. There's opportunities for messaging, for publicly sharing this out. And as we, Chad, you're kind of now the challenge process, ideally, if we can hit in the second quarter of next year. So first quarter of next year, there'll be some opportunities. I know you all have big meetings. You bring your members together and have dialogue around that stuff. If you can find agenda spots where this content will fit in, especially earlier in the quarter rather than later, to give people a chance to get their ducks in a row for putting, especially on the CAI side, that would be good. But the challenge is complicated. We're having to, Mike, James, a whole team is building software to support that. It's very intensive. Documenting all of this stuff, every single address that comes in, working through and doing all of the rebuttals is very, very challenging. But we'll get it done. Dr. Nelson, anybody else have questions?
Yes, Jim, I do have a question. The definition of the Community Anchor Institute. So I know that you were saying that, like, for example, on an HBCU campus or a campus, that each building can be considered an anchor. How would we then message? How would you prefer that we message the Institute to say that each building can be considered as an anchor?
Yeah, I mean, really what they need to do, Dr. Nelson, that survey, if they have 15 buildings, they need to fill out the survey 15 times.
Okay.
Each physical street address, and what we'll do is we'll take all of those in, we'll evaluate connectivity options for each one of those, and hopefully fold them into the map.
Gotcha.
But it is separate. Obviously, we can't take PO boxes. We need separate physical addresses. We have to validate every address, make sure it gets included in our data set. James, anything I missed on that?
No, that just as long as the building meets that definition. I mean, so like a dining hall is not going to meet that definition.
Mhm.
So as long as the building meets that definition, yes, it can be included. You know, just to be honest, I've reached out to higher education and they had a terrible response rate. I think only 3 responded. And they sent multiple messages to all of them. And it's surprising it's been a struggle to collect this data when it could be eligible for funding.
Mhm.
But all we can do is try, and, you know, Dr. Nelson, you're a very different voice, and you're plugged into all of the HBCUs, and this is why we're leaning on the BBAC to help us out and muscle up in certain areas that we need some help.
Okay, thank you.
Now, Jim, you know, of course, the Rural Resource Coalition, we have our annual meeting 1st of December. And
Yep.
unfortunately, I got on late, so I didn't catch the deadline. So I know we probably want to get this information out before the annual meeting. That'll be an ideal place, of course, to engage community anchor institutions. So either offline or at another opportunity, you and I and Ken can talk about how do we capitalize on that event.
Yep. Yeah, I think, Bernie and others, you guys can lean on us. If you have an event where you're bringing people together, you can say, hey, Broadband Office, how can you guys maximize this audience? And if you've got a spot for us in the agenda, we will figure that out. I mean, we're very grateful for the Harvest Oak Food Bank as an example. We set up a table and we worked directly with, they had 20 counties and they had folks that run in the food distribution network from 20 counties. Cedric and I were there, and we made direct outreach that way. So if you've got an audience, we will do everything possible to engage it and to fold in some content.
Dr. Nelson, one thing that you may find useful is if you go to our BEAD page, under that CAI ribbon, that accordion, you will see a one-page memo that talks about community anchor institutions and the ultimate ask, right? What we're looking for. It includes, the image of the QR code as well. So, do feel free to pull anything off of that site, use it, repurpose it, blast it out there, and beat the drum, please.
Will do. Thank you.
And Jim, that's one thing I was gonna say. I know your team is absolutely underwater trying to keep all these balls moving in the right direction. Any messaging, just like you referenced the memo, that's key to us as an association.
Yep.
And I'm sure to Eric and to other groups to make sure we're saying the same thing.
Yep.
Got the right deadlines, how to interact. And anything we can lift up and push out on social media and through our constant contact we it goes quicker and we can keep pushing it. So we appreciate that.
And that's what we're leaning on you guys a lot for.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's an exciting time. You all can kind of see this initial proposal has us all consumed on top of getting CPF between now and end of the year is really, really heavy load. First quarter next year, we will probably have another grant round. We still have SLFRF money to get deployed. So we're trying to move SLFRF and CPF. Any balance of CPF, we're trying to get that all committed by June 30 next year.
Would you double up on the challenge process in second quarter with it's a BEAD challenge process? Would you double up on ARPA challenge process because you'll have the maps there?
We'll have to take that under advisement,
Yeah.
depending on time. It just might not be enough.
Yeah.
But we are trying to get all of the data assembled.
And I'm not advising anything, I'm just asking.
Yeah. Well, it's just,
Yeah.
we're trying to figure, you guys can all see though, we really want the ARPA dollars fully committed and deployed because once those regions of geographies have federal dollars committed to them, they come off the map for anything BEAD related.
Right.
Oh, yes, I want to put this out there. I forgot to note, Enhanced ACAM awards went out. Are you guys familiar with that? I know, Brad, you are. It's an additional source of federal funding is basically what it comes down to, but Enhanced ACAM awards were accepted by some. I need to get with anybody that got one of those. We're gonna need accurate data on that.
What is that?
It'll blow everybody's brain cells if we get into the weeds.
Okay,
on it.
never mind.
But it's federal funding for ILEC service areas, basically.
Okay.
Any ILEC locations, the FCC made some new dollars available for those. Incumbent local exchange for the rural telephone company.
Thank you, Peggy.
Yeah.
Because I was gonna ask.
The more questions you get, the deeper that will.
Yeah.
Joe, y'all asked the right questions, but it can just keep going.
I apologize. I went into the deep mode there. Well, very good. That was the content that we had today. I know we got into a lot of stuff. Tom, everybody, my team, thanks for jumping in, providing so much detail on this.
Ask one more question.
Yeah.
Mike Hertzberger went over the priority of funding, which was unserved, underserved, CAIs, and then other programming. But when you get your approval for your initial proposal, say around March, 20% of the money, say $110 million, instantly goes.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, it doesn't, okay.
It's an allocation, and this is an important point. BEAD funding is allocations, and you have to present expenses for drawdown.
Okay.
The money does not come to the state ever until we have expenses to verify.
Okay. So that 20% though, Jim, would not follow the priority that Michael Hertzberger.
Yes, it does.
Oh, so that 20% will go first to unserved?
Well, this is a complicated nuance of BEAD, but it's easier to explain at a national level. Some states needed to improve their workforce to add employees to actually know how to install fiber on telephone poles at the same time they're funding projects. So there's a special carve out for workforce stuff, for broadband related workforce that is an eligible deployment expense.
Okay.
So it's a nuance. So really, the initial 20% money in South Carolina's case, cannot be used for infrastructure at all.
Okay.
Because we will not have completed the challenge.
Okay. Okay. That is.
In other states, the sequencing is different and they might be able to use it for infrastructure, but in our case, we can't.
Okay.
So the 20% is really just an allocation. The only thing South Carolina can really do with it is broadband related workforce stuff.
Okay.
And that's not going to be 110 million. It's going to be, some amount of money. We've got some ideas around apprenticeships.
Okay.
And some other things, but that's, for discussion on a later date. But that's the way BEAD works. From a cash flow perspective, it's very different than ARPA. ARPA has been sitting in state bank accounts since March of 2021. All the counties as well. BEAD's not that way. It's more like a line of credit that you draw down against as expenses are validated and approved and all of that stuff.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Good deal. Mike Coker, I see you out there. Any updates from the Santee Cooper world?
No, we're just kind of hanging out, having some conversations with some ISPs. I've got a little bit of pole attachment interest going on. Trying to create some networks and redundancy in some of the routes. But that's about the latest and greatest we've got from us.
And just for general interest, Mike and I and Chad and a lot of others, we were at the ribbon cutting ceremony. Governor McMaster presented yesterday for the cable landing station in Myrtle Beach. And I think you'd all like to know that we have 3 transcontinental fiber cables landing in Myrtle Beach State Park, which is crazy to think about. There's actually one cable is over 9,000 miles long. One single cable going all the way from Myrtle Beach State Park all the way to Buenos Aires, Argentina, and coming on ground there. And that was funded, I believe, by Google. So Google and Meta are both funding these projects, but we'll have another transcontinental cable to Bermuda, another one to Spain and Portugal, which is crazy to think that that's all coming to South Carolina, and it really puts us on a map. So that was a big, exciting project grand opening yesterday. Lisa Aiken, how about Library World?
Hey, Jim and friends, I'm sorry. It's kind of ironic that I've had connection issues for this meeting. But this is the third device I've used to connect to this meeting. So Library World, things are busy as always, and we're excited about this project. And I sent some information over to your team a couple of weeks ago. So please let me know if you need anything else. I have some questions for you, but I'm going to ask you offline.
Okay, that's fine.
Thanks.
Would any other BBA members want to share out what's going on? Have any updates for us? Well, great. I think we'll give everybody a few extra minutes back in their day. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now. And